Evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Facebook live stream, where we're going to be looking at the new Digistat from Drayton. I'm sure you've probably all seen these. They've been in the merchants for a while now. Can't remember quite how long, but it's got to be getting on for a year that these have been out. And these obviously are the third generation of our Digistat. So you'll all be familiar with the wavy bottom, the previous one. This is what supersedes that. So the purpose of tonight, I just want to go through and give you some of the key benefits and features, the sort of things that you can be telling your customer, if you're trying to steer them in the direction of it, what the key benefits are for them, but also for you as an installer, because we've very much designed this with the installer in mind. So we want to make sure that it's familiar for you to install, and it's something that you're not when you're fitting it, you'll see the sort of lineage to the old one. So I'll take you through a little deck just to show you that. We'll have a look at some wiring, and then I'll take you through one of the biggest questions that always gets asked is the commissioning journey. Now, strictly speaking, these are paired from the factory, but there are a few things you can do to sort of help yourself, because if you get the order of operations wrong, then you find that you have to go through the commissioning journey. So normally you shouldn't have to, but I'm going to show you how it should go and then what to do if it doesn't go quite how you expected. So if I can just share this with you, I just want to take you through sort of the thinking behind the new Digistat and the sort of things that it's likely to be replacing. So obviously we know there's a requirement for time and temperature controls. So it's unlikely, particularly with a combi these days, that you're going to have separates like this, because it's far easier just to wire, drop a 5-core out of the boiler into either a programmable thermostat or, better still, a wireless receiver, because then you've got freedom to have the thermostat wherever you want in the property. But still, the principle of time and temperature holds. So it's going to replace a time clock and a standard up and down non-programmable analog, you might say, room stat. And it will also replace the Digistat Plus. So this is this is available as a Plus and a Plus RF. So still current at the moment, but you'll see as we get through that this new Digistat will take the place of all of that. It's not the Digistat Plus non-programmable, so you're obliged to have something on there doing your timings. Again, not terribly popular with combi boilers, but you do see a lot of these if you're doing, say, twin zone, which is your S plan, or biflow, your Y plans. A lot of people will have these as their air temperature sensing option. And this is what it's going to replace. So the familiar one with the wavy bottom. Now you'll remember that there was loads of these, and you'll see on a slide that I show you in a minute. There was loads of different SKUs to this range, and one of the things we've tried to do with this new Digistat is simplify that range so that you're not having to hold massive amounts of van stock or getting really confused with part numbers depending on what model you want. So that's the sort of things that we're going to replace. We also have in fact, there's two new RF options. There is a single channel which sort of takes over from the RF 700, which is your Digistat Plus 2 RF, and the RF 701, the Digistat Plus 3 RF. But we now have a 2-channel version. So you've got the ability to be able to easily upgrade your customer to a intelligent control just by swapping out the 2-channel programmer. And I've got a little, when we look at the wiring in a minute, that will become clearer. So this is the sort of stuff that we're going to be replacing. This is what we're going to be replacing it with. So regardless of which version you have, they all look broadly like this. There will be some subtle differences, such as a battery compartment at the bottom for the battery versions and the RF ones, and some of them have screws underneath. But this is essentially the user interface that the customer is going to now experience. Now you can see immediately that this has got a backlight, which is something that was much called for on the previous version, the Gen 2. And we've also now got an extra button. If you remember if I pop back to that one, you've got your left and right hand arrow keys and your plus and minus. Now, anybody that's had to program one of these, particularly a plus 3 RF, and you want every day differently, you are hammering on that right-hand arrow key quite a lot. So the idea is now you've got this confirm button, this extra circular button. You can view it as like a confirm button or an OK button, and that will essentially allows you to take a lot of the button pressing out. You make a change, you confirm it. Much more logical and much more intuitive way of programming these. So what's it all about and why have we done it? Well, it's the old one obviously has been around for quite a long time. I think it's sort of 19, 20 years that the wavy bottom version has been around, and it was time for a refresh, both in terms of features, but also in terms of the way it looks. But one of the key features and one of the unique features to Drayton is the fact that we've got this Bluetooth app control. So this is by no means a connected product like 𝗿𝗀𝘁𝗳𝗲. So it's not something that you're going to connect to the internet. It's not something that you're going to be using for remote control or linking to things like Alexa. This is purely local control over Bluetooth. But again, it's with this view that we want to give the customer the easiest way of controlling their device. Now, depending on where the location of the Digistat is, it may be that it's not particularly accessible. So we've now given them access using the 𝗿𝗀𝘁𝗳𝗲 app. So you download the 𝗿𝗀𝘁𝗲 Home app, the same app that you would use if you were installing 𝗿𝗁𝘁𝗲, but the customer then connects via the Bluetooth journey. And that means that they've got control of their heating system using an app, but only whilst they're in the property. So it doesn't require internet, and it doesn't require anything that has a permanent connection to a third-party cloud service. This is something that's within the home, and you just connect your phone directly to it. And it's very much like if you've got Bluetooth set up in your car, where once you first go through that pairing journey, every time you get in your car, you don't have to go through that every time. The car sees the phone and it joins up, links up. It's exactly the same with this. You come into the house. If you were to open the app when you're outside of the house, you're going to have a little message that says that it can't see the device. As soon as you come into the home and you come into Bluetooth range, automatically connects back up, and you've got that connection. You've got the ability to control your heating using the 𝗿𝗁𝘁𝗲 Home app. So we wanted to try and make this as simple as possible. Now, the app bit is really for the customer. And as an installer, you're not obliged to go anywhere near the app. There's no added benefit or feature from an installer's point of view of the app when you're going through commissioning. There's nothing that you have to go into the app that you can't do from the interface on the front of the control itself. So you really don't need to go near it. It's an added benefit for the customer. Bit like 𝗿𝗁𝘁𝗲, where we say you do your bit and then you hand it over to the customer and they do the customer journey. This is exactly the same, but except there is no installer bit on the app. It's all very much for the customer. So if they want to use it, they can. If they don't have to. But you as an installer certainly don't need to. So familiar features, we tried to keep it as, we wanted to make it people that are familiar with the old one. We don't want it to be completely brand new interface that you need to learn. So when you're going through programming it, you'll be able to see that it's, see the lineage to the old one. The Bluetooth control for the homeowner, and simple installation. So again, we're respecting this industry standard backplate, and we're giving you volt-free. We're giving you open therm contacts as well. So there's a lot of extra tech that's going into this, but still making the installation as simple as possible. And as always, with all our products, it's designed in the UK and designed for UK heating systems with UK installers in mind. So here's a little bit of a trek back in history. For those that, if you're old enough to remember the old square box Digistat, so that launched in '94. I certainly wasn't doing this then. So first generation, and this was very much non-programmable. So the Digistat 1, and we also did an RF 1, which was the wireless version, just a standard up and down, plus or minus, very much like the Digistat Plus, which we've got now. But that's really where the whole Digistat journey started. And then moving on a bit to 2004, so 10 years later is when the second gen, the one with the wavy bottom, came out. And we had then the programmable option. So this ability to be able to set different time and temperature events throughout the day. not having the need to have your time and temperature devices as separate devices, which you have to wire between. This is one wire out of the boiler, 5-core out of the boiler, say, into a backplate or into the actual control, and it does everything you need, both time and temperature. Now, as it went along, we added some more options. So we quickly brought out the wireless versions. But as you see, by the end of 2004, we still had 16 variants, which, if you're trying to keep stock of this in the van, it's highly unlikely that you're going to keep one of every 16. And really, as we moved on, by 2016, we were starting to add SI versions. So you ended up with about 20 different SKUs in the range. So that's now stopped with the new Digistat, and the new Digistat renders down into 4 separate versions. So rather than purchasing the control based on programming, so if you wanted to say a 24-hour, you choose a +2, or a 7-day, you choose a +3. You now choose it based on the application. So what wiring is going to be there? 2-wire, 4-wire? Is it RF? Is it 2-channel? So you've now got 4 SKUs. Makes it much easier to keep enough kit on the van, so that you're not having to run to the merchants, and it just makes everything a lot simpler. Now, this here is really talking about the whole backstory. So we know that by having a smart, intelligent, programmable room stat is one of the biggest things that you can do to sort of drive efficiency into your property, and particularly with Boiler Plus, most people are looking at controls to fulfill the requirements of Boiler Plus. So we know that actually the method of control that it does is there for energy saving, but we've got this whole backstory, and this is sort of the added value that you get, which is all of the manufacturing that's gone into it, where that's also made for net zero. So things like no single-use plastics, making sure that any plastics we do use is recyclable, making sure nothing goes to landfill. So, and this is what sets us apart from the competition in a lot of cases, is that as well as producing a product which in itself can have a significantly positive effect on people's energy and climate change as a whole, we've also got this intense look at what's going on throughout the manufacturing process, and making sure that whilst we end up with a really good product at the end of it, it hasn't sort of cost the earth to get there. So really, that's another thing that, from the customer's point of view, it's a warm sort of feeling to know that we have been sort of looking after the planet and making sure we can do as much as we can through the manufacturing process, as well as the life cycle that then begins with the customer with the product. So I said to you that it's got the Bluetooth control, but also at the same time, it's not a direct competitor to 𝗿𝗎𝘁. And this really sort of explains where it sort of sits in our range. So our manual controls, again, you'll probably be really familiar with these. The SM1s and 2s, really popular for people that want simple control. But again, at the moment, and particularly if you're like an SM1, which, single channel, aimed at a combi boiler, but the reality is, unless you're going to fulfill either load compensation or weather compensation or flue gas heat recovery by some other way, or having your weather compensator, unless you're going to fulfill that not from within the control, you're unlikely to be fitting an SM1 to a customer's combi boiler anymore, because Boiler Plus won't allow it. So these manual controls, they tend to be our sort of legacy products. Still do have a place in the market, but we're sort of moving away from that in terms of the intelligent control. You've got the complete other end of the scale, which is 𝗿𝗎𝘁, with the smart, that you've got individual room control, but the big thing with 𝗿𝗎𝘁 is the connectivity, all the cloud services, everything, everything being collated and being able to see what your energy usage. But it's certainly the way that we're moving, but it's not for everybody. And it's if you haven't got an internet connection, or you're not interested, there's certainly generations of customers that I used to install for that you can't sell this to them because they just aren't interested, and it's not in their psyche to have a connected home, and it's causing more problems than it resolves. So certainly not for everybody, and that's really where the new Digistat sits. It sort of sits in the middle, and it's the bridge between the manual control, the familiar stuff that everybody's learnt to love over the period since it launched, and 𝗿𝗚, which a lot of people aren't that comfortable with having something that's constantly connected to the internet. So this is really where the new Digistat sits. No Wi-Fi required. You do still get the app control, so you will use the Bluetooth link to the Digistat, but using the 𝗿𝗚 app. Now, obviously, you could say, well, to get the 𝗿𝗚 app, you need an internet connection, which is true. So at some point, you will need to go online and download the 𝗿𝗚 app. And similarly, if we need to do any firmware updates, we can do that via the cloud, bridging using your phone. So if your phone is connected or your phone has an internet connection, when you go through and register, we can check to make improvements or feature additions that way. So you don't need what I would say is you don't need a permanent Wi-Fi connection. You might need something when you've set up and you first get going, but certainly then, if you never want to connect it again, you don't have to, which is not how you would run 𝗿𝗚. 𝗿𝗚 needs that connection, because there's so much data and there's so much cloud service going on. And I mentioned this universal solution. Well, that's what we're talking about, where we've now got these 4 SKUs. So what's in it for you as the installer? Why would you be pushing this to your customer? Well, universal programming, that's the big one. So like I said, you're not buying a product for a particular way of timing it. Oh, it's +2, it's 24-hour, I needed a +3, back to the merchants. You're not doing that. This user configurable. So if you want every day the same, you can do that. If you want every day differently, you can do that. And if you want it on a 5-day, 2-day split, you can also do that just by changing the parameters in the back end. We have optimized it for all heat sources now. So we've always done oil, gas, and electric, but we've now got heat pumps in there. So when you're setting the fuel type, what you're doing is you're setting the cycle rate. So gas, which is the default, 6 cycles per hour. So boiler is likely to fire, assuming there's demand, once every 10 minutes, and the control will work out based on its thermal profile how long in each 10-minute block it needs to run in order to fulfill set point. Oil, 3 cycles per hour, once every 20 minutes. Electric is the fastest, 12 cycles per hour, so once every 5 minutes. Now, for heat pump, we all know you don't want to be cycling a heat pump. So if you set it to heat pump, that takes away all the modulation. So essentially, if there's demand, the relay contact is made. As soon as you hit that demand, that's when the relay de-energizes. You're not cycling the heat pump. So we've optimized it for that. It's also compatible with previous iterations of the Digistat. So if you've got an old SCR unit, the old receiver, you can pair the new Digistat to the old receiver. I'm not sure why you want to do that, because it sits on an industry standard backplate. So you're unless you buy them and you seek them out and buy them as spares, you're going to be getting a receiver in the pack. But if for some reason it's awkward to get to, or there's some reason why you don't want to remove the existing SCR off its backplate, there's no reason why you can't link your new Digistat straight to it. And you probably all know the commissioning journey. I certainly know it off by heart now for the Gen 2, the previous Digistat. Well, you shouldn't have to go through that anymore, because they are paired at the factory. So we link them together. And I said earlier that you should never really have to go through the commissioning journey if you follow the process, if you follow the sort of correct order of operations. We've now got a 2-channel version, which you can use for heating and hot water. So again, if you want to if a customer's got, say, an S-plan or a Y-plan system with fairly old controls, separate room stat with a separate timer or 2-channel programmer, if you want to give them some smart control, some load compensation straight off the bat, the easiest thing to do is replace that 2-channel programmer with the 2-channel receiver. You'd link out your room stat like you would if you were fitting 𝗿𝗚. You would still use your existing cylinder stat, but you've immediately given the customer some load compensation, some smart control, as well as all the other features of Bluetooth app connection. But a real neat way of being able to upgrade somebody's system without having to get involved with loads of wiring or anything really invasive. Now we've got a 16 amp version. So the mains version has got a 16 amp relay in it. So you can use that if you've got any electrical heating loads that you want. And it's also lockable by the installer. So if you want to access protect this, you certainly can do. Now, from the customer's point of view, obviously the big headline is the Bluetooth app control, but we've also made manual control much easier and much more intuitive with that fifth button. And you've now got the audible feedback. So when you're changing temperature, the buttons will beep at you. And when your set point traverses where the ambient temperature is, you get a different tone of beep. So what that's basically meaning for anybody that can't quite make out what the digits are on the screen, for anybody that's partially sighted, all they've got to do is start pressing either the plus or minus button in any particular direction. And they know that when the beep changes, the set point and the ambient temperature match. And then, depending on which way they want to go, they can then count how many clicks, each click, half a degree increment. They can, so if it's 20 degrees, they know 4 clicks on the minus, I've just set it to 18, or 4 clicks on the plus, I've just set it to 22. So a really nice way of if you've got somebody that isn't able to see, or maybe even if the Digistat's not in the most accessible place, you're able to make your temperature changes just by listening to the beep that it gives you. Now that fifth button that works as like a confirm button also gives you a boost feature. So you can now, if you've got a schedule set up, but for some reason you need heat outside of that, you don't need to advance. You don't need to like manually put the heating on and then forget to turn it off, and it's on all night. You can just use that center button, that circular button, and you get anything up to 1, 2, or 3 hour boost at whatever temperature you want. We've got some stuff carried over from Wiser as well. So you've got away mode. Remember, with away mode, you can essentially tell the device you're leaving the property, and it will set a blanket temperature because you can have multiples of these set up on your app. And you've also got holiday mode, which is essentially like a timed away mode. So away mode is I'm away, and then when you come back, you turn it on. Turn away mode off, and that brings your system back to where it was. Holiday mode is the same principle, except you can say I'm going to be away for X amount of time, and then typically what you would do is set it to say 1 day short of how long you're going to be away, and then when you come back to a nice warm house. The difference is the temperature's been held low all the time, so you haven't been burning fuel when you don't need to. And there's another thing that we were asked for is it's now got a desk stand. So you can mount it on the wall, or you can sit it on its stand, which gives you a bit more flexibility as to where to site it. So as I said, it boils down to 4 separate SKUs. So the 2290B is a battery version. That's a 2-wire thermostat, particularly useful to keep as van stock, because regardless of whatever thermostat you come up against in the field, there's always going to be a live in and there's always going to be a live out. So 2290B, really good. I used to keep loads of those, or certainly the battery version of its predecessor on the van, because it was really useful, because I knew that whatever I had there's going to be those 2 wires. So the 2290B is always going to be a suitable replacement. 2290M is exactly the same thing, except it doesn't have batteries. It's got a mains connection, so you've got 2 extra terminals in there. You're going to be fitting this probably more when if it's a new installation where you're running cables to it, because batteries are going to need to be changed every 18 months to 2 years. The mains one will be there as long as you've got power going to it. So 2290M aimed more at if you're going in, or if you know what's there already. If you've got a 4-wire thermostat, then but you sort of need to have taken the old one off the wall first and looked at your wiring before you buy the 2290M. Whereas 2290B, regardless of what's there, if you've got 4 wires, you just don't use the 2, the live and the neutral. And if you've only got 2 wires, those are the ones that you're going to use. So those are the wired versions. Then we've got the RF version. RF901 is your single channel wireless, so replaces the RF 700, which is the Digistat Plus 2 RF, and the RF701 replaced, and indeed the RF710, which is the Digistat Plus 1 RF, because these you can use them in manual mode, and then they're not a programmable thermostat. So that really replaces all of the current estate of wireless, single channel wireless. And then the one that I'm getting quite excited about is the RF902, because this gives you, like I said earlier, you can take something like an 𝗵𝗲𝘁𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, a 2-channel programmer doing heating and hot water. You can replace it with that receiver. The customer will then do all of their programming on the one thermostat, but it gives them the ability to immediately have some load compensation and some smart control using, without you having to do a huge amount of legwork. Now, the RF902, as well as being heating and hot water, will also do, or will support, 2 thermostats. So if you want to zone a combi, you would just wire the 2-channel receiver into. I mean, you're going to have a wiring center, because if you've zoned a combi, you're going to have 2 separate zone valves to go off to their respective zones. But again, you're not having to wire in 2 separate units. You can link 2 room thermostats to the one 2-channel receiver, and as a consequence of that, you're able to buy them as spares. So, quick rundown on the wiring. So, combi control is fairly simple. If you've got the 2-channel, if you've got the 2-wire, the battery version, you're just connecting to the two what would be LS and LR if it's a Worcester boiler, or the RT terminals in your boiler. This is volt free as well, so there's no need for you to worry about what voltage your boiler is. You can go to either the mains bus, or you can go to the 24-volt side, because the switch in there is volt free. Mains version, exactly the same deal. So you're going to be wiring directly to the external connection, external controls connection on your combi boiler. The only difference here is you are going to also be taking a live and neutral out to the Digistat to power it. You don't need to take an earth. It is a class 2 product. But again, because you're running it on mains, you don't need to. There's no influence on the mains, but with the switching contacts. So the fact that you've got a live going out there, the switching contacts are still volt free. We've also got open therm on the mains version. So you've actually got an extra terminal rail, 2 terminals together on the mains version, if you want to run it via open therm, and this will then auto detect. So you see there you've got a flame symbol on the Digistat. That flame symbol is what shows when there is demand when you're using relay control. So the general rule is, if you see a flame there, you can pretty much say that the relay inside has fired. If you're using this on open therm, you don't get that, because obviously you're essentially firing all the time, because you're just demanding different flow temperatures. So instead of that, you just get an OT symbol in the middle of the screen. As long as you've got that, it's detected and it's controlling via open therm. So a really nice feature, but only on the mains version. So on the 2290M, that you've got open therm, not on the 2290B. So then we come on to the wireless ones, and again, same principle for a combi. External connections onto terminals 1 and 3 on the backplate, and it's our standard backplate. And again, you've got your neutral and earth and live to actually run the receiver, but no influence on the switching contacts. The RF901, so the single channel receiver, also has open therm. So open therm available on the wired version, the mains, the 4-wire thermostat, so the mains wired version, and the RF901 has got the open therm connections. And what that actually looks like, if I show you the backplate, you've actually got this extra terminal rail just at the bottom there that you don't get. So if you're using open therm, then you will need to swap out your backplate, because you won't have those terminals on your existing one, because that is new for this product. And then in terms of your buy flow, process flow, what you're going to be removing, so you're going to lose the LP and the room stat. You're going to keep your cylinder stat, because again, we don't know if it's vented or unvented, so you use that, and you will just and when we say you lose the room stat, that's essentially linking it out in the wiring center. Exactly the same process for your twin zone. Now, obviously, this is a process flow rather than a wiring diagram. The reality is all of these things wire back to a wiring center, but just in terms of time, temperature, valves, and boiler, this just shows you where it's going. So you're losing your room stat, you're losing your timer, you're linking out your room stat, but you've still got your temperature sensing for your hot water controls. And like I said, you can also do this 2 thermostat process flow. So 2 thermostats out to their respective zone valves and then off to the boiler. That's if you want to do an easy way of zoning a combi boiler. And last slide is, before I get onto something a bit more interesting than a slide deck, this is really just the comparisons compared to our competitors. You know, it's just a bit of benchmarking. So if you're interested in that, when this video goes out and goes live, which is just, or when the recording goes up, you'll be able to pause that and see exactly what you're getting with the new Digistat. Right, I'm going to come back into the room, and what I'm going to do now is I want to take you through some of the commissioning side of it. So if we have a look at the RF901, so this is the wireless version, the single channel wireless. Now, the mistake that everybody makes is they get the room stat out of the box, and the first thing they do is they put the batteries in. Now, when you do that, the room stat is hunting to see where the receiver is, and it's not going to find it, so it will time out. And then when it's timed out, you then have to go in and initiate the pairing again in order for it to connect. So the single biggest rule with these is don't take your room stat straight out of the box and pop your batteries in. Do your receiver bit first. So if we power up a receiver, this is what you should see. So when you power up the receiver, you get the red light, and then you're in join mode. So it's flashing between red and green. Now, when it's doing this, you don't want to go off and make a cup of tea or nip out to the van. You want to make sure that when you've just powered it up like that and it's in join mode, that's the time to pop the batteries into the room stat. Pop them in like that. And then as soon as it powers up, you'll see that it will join. So the Digistat is scanning. Tells you that it's received it, and you hear the click. And there you can see now the receiver is no longer in join mode. It's actually there's a call for heat, and you can see that by the flame symbol. So you get the green light. If I drop the temperature down on the Digistat, and there you can hear those beeps. Drop the temperature down. Let it register, and then you'll see that the green light has gone out. So the normal condition for the receiver is either no light at all, which means there's no call for heat, or a green light, meaning that there is a call for heat. But like I say, the important thing is once you've powered this up, immediately put your batteries into your room stat. Don't go off and do a load of other stuff, because again, this will be searching, and if it doesn't see it, it will time out. So next one I'm going to show you is the process for the 2-channel. So this is your 2-channel receiver, and as you would expect, 2 buttons on the front. Now, one of the interesting things with this is that the buttons on the front don't actually do anything on a working system. So if we take this system here that I've just showed you, this is just paired up. It doesn't matter how much you press the button on here, you can't override a working system. So this button will only influence your heating system once if it detects a fault. So if it's lost the link between the room stat, or if there's something else going on. So you can't override a working system. Exactly the same principle for the 2-channel. Let me just whip the back plate off of that one. And while I'm doing that, I'll just give you another close-up of the back plate for the RF901. You can see those there are your 2 terminals. These ones here are your 2 terminals for the open therm. So if you're not using open therm, don't worry about it. You can use your standard back plate. But if you are, then you'll need to swap it out for that. Right, let me pop the 2-channel onto the back plate. So exactly the same arrangement. you'll get your flashing green and red. That means it's in join mode. So we then pop the batteries into the room stat that's come with the control, because you'll always get one in the box, and the one that comes in the box will be paired to the receiver. So just put the batteries in that. Exactly the same thing. You've got the scan. It will then tell you that it sees it, and it will assign it to the heating channel. Now, what you've got here, because this is the 2 channel, you've now got some options. So whereas before it just saw it and then assigned it, you can now choose whether you want to control just central heating, or whether you want to control central heating and domestic hot water. So if you're replacing a 2-channel programmer, you're going to choose this, and that means that when you confirm it, your hot water, your hot water button on there, your hot water channel, will go out and connect to your cylinder stat, and you'll be able to schedule that accordingly using the using this device. But if you just select the CH and confirm it, that's then assigned it to just the 1 channel. So you can see here now it's no longer in join mode, because it's this channel here has got the Digistat assigned to it. But the other channel, you can see the button's actually still working on it. And the reason it's doing that is because there is nothing assigned to it. There is no stat, and we've not told it that it's hot water. So if we want to zone the combi, if we want to have 2 thermostats on one, what we do is we press and hold in the heating button, and we keep it held in. And you can see that puts us now back into join mode. You'll then get from your merchants another room thermostat, which will be a spare. Now, because it's a spare, it's not paired to anything. So we now need to force that into pairing mode. And we do that by pressing and holding the calendar button. Now, it will ask us, do we want to reset? Well, we do. So we press the plus button or the minus to toggle the no to yes, confirm it, and then it's in scan mode. So that's scanning. This is scanning. Give it a couple of seconds. It will tell you that the pair has been received, which is that. And you can now see that on our receiver, we've got no lights at all. Neither of the override buttons are working. If I raise the temperature up on this one here and confirm it, we will get an output on that channel. And if I raise the temperature up on the original, and confirm it, that will then fire the original channel. So there we go. So now this Digistat this receiver has now got that thermostat and that thermostat assigned to it. Right, that's really me covered all that I need to. Just have a look and see if there are any questions coming in. I don't see anything here. So last 30 seconds of me going on. If you've got any questions, get them in now. In the meantime, what I'm going to say is have a look at our 9° network. So the priority shop is open. So if you need any kit, let me just share that with you. Show you what I'm looking at here. Oh, that goes. So our 9° network, you got the priority shop. And there's some really quite good pricing on pretty much everything in there. Now, you are restricted to quantities that you can buy, but certainly have a look at there if there's anything you want. Also, if you want any literature, so if you want some wiser brochures, you can order those. They come in packs of 25. Things like the balancing key, TRB gland seals, that sort of thing. Now, on the other side, you've got your training modules. Now, I'm in the process of refreshing the wiser modules. So the wiser modules that are in there, some of them are animations. Some of them, the later ones that I've done are the bolt-on modules for underfloor heating and electrical heating. So those 2 are being refreshed as we speak. There's also going to be some more modules in there, so some more units, I should say, on control pack wiring and fault finding. So plenty of good stuff for you to have a look at. In the meantime, keep an eye out for the promo videos, and we've also got some live events that are going to be coming up. So Claire will be broadcasting those on the group, I'm sure, when we actually have got some dates. But that's going to be something like a 90-minute session that you can come on, and if you do some real in-depth wiring, fault finding, if you've got any questions, really sort of interactive. So keep an eye out for those. In the meantime, no questions. So have a good rest of the week. Keep an eye out for my next promo, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys. Catch you soon.